As we light our chalice this morning, I invite you to speak aloud our affirmation. It's printed on the back of your order of service. Please stand. It's printed on the back of your order of service. If you're here with us, or Bonnie is putting the words in the Zoom chat. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need. For these high purposes do we unite in worship. Thank you. Now, if you'd like to unmute yourself on Zoom or turn around and greet a neighbor, you have a few minutes to say hello and offer a greeting.
The homily this morning is How Shall We Be Healed by the Reverend Wayne Arneson. How shall we be healed? What does it mean for us as religious liberals to talk of healing in a religious context? What does it mean to talk of healing in a world where illness and disease are understood more clearly than ever before, but where adequate health care for most of the world's people remains inaccessible? What does it mean to talk of healing when medical and spiritual models of wellness don't speak much, if at all, or very often, to each other? What does it mean to talk of healing when all too often the best we can do with all of our knowledge and all of our power and all of our technology is not enough? How shall we be healed? I don't think we can talk about it and what it means to be healed until we have arrived at a common understanding about what it means to be sick. If we limit our understanding of illness to the physical realm, then we limit our understanding of healing to that realm as well. We all live our lives in 4 dimensions. The physical is but one of those dimensions. The other 3 are the emotional, the intellectual, and the spiritual. Although we first think about something being physically wrong when we become ill, it doesn't take much reflection to realize that the illness involves all 4 of these dimensions, and usually at the same time. Illness not only affects the body, the mind, and the spirit of the one who is sick, it becomes a systemic disease that infects and disrupts a marriage, a family system, a community. Illness affects the wholeness of who we are, and this wholeness is a religious issue. If we think about illness and healing in this broader sense, we then can understand that curing and healing may not be the same thing. Curing and healing, not the same thing. Excuse my contact this morning. Just healing of itself. When we cure an illness, we generally think of the cessation of physical symptoms or the correction of the physical malfunction that was causing them. But if healing involves the whole person, we can imagine the possibility that medical technology can help the physical problem, but not cure the underlying dysfunction of the other dimensions of our lives that have brought the illness to the forefront in the first place. I'm going to remove this, excuse me. I would like to think that a person's spiritual and emotional dimensions could be made so whole and healthy that they would dramatically pull the physical self toward wholeness as well. The great Dr. Albert Schweitzer once made the observation, the role of the doctor is to awaken the physician in each person, and no one knows really how we do that. This was Dr. Schweitzer who said that. The physician in each person is there to be awakened, and there is no single path, no single belief system that forms the correct way for that awakening to happen. I cannot use the word awakening without thinking of the book of that title by Dr. Oliver Sacks. Awakenings is the story of a community of profoundly disabled people who have varying neurological deficits, ranging from Parkinsonian traumas and tremors and tics to deep coma states, all results of the disease known as sleeping sickness that afflicted them in the early part of the 20th century. Sacks tells the story of their miraculous responses to the experimental treatments with dopamine drugs in the late 1960s. The awakening they experienced was the temporary restoration of nearly normal functioning for most of the patients in the experiment. The patients' personalities re-emerged intact from underneath the rock of symptoms under which they had been hidden for as much as 40 years. In the annals of modern medicine, if anything comes close to duplicating the miracles that were ascribed to Jesus, it surely is these awakenings that happened in the late 60s. Tragically, the miracle was not permanent. Almost all the patients who took the drugs suffered from a return to previous symptoms and detached states, or the emergence of new and sometimes more severe Parkinsonian symptoms. Each patient reacted differently according to his or her own unique life history, family support, or personality. However, in spite of this recurrence and relapse into Parkinson's, Sacks reported that many of his patients reached a new level of accommodation with their illness, a state that he described as no longer very well or very ill, as relatively even water, which is nevertheless much better than their pre-treatment state. There is indeed a will to get well, to be well. We greet each other sometimes that way. We say goodbye, be well. Sacks described in his patients, and which is so familiar to anyone who develops friendships with people who have disabilities or other setbacks. Sacks observed, one sees again and again, not merely in the contact of Parkinsonism, but in cancer, tuberculosis, neurosis, all diseases, remarkable, unexpected, and inexplicable resolutions. We see this in hospice sometimes too. At times when it seems that everything is lost, one must allow, with surprise, with delight perhaps, that such things can and do happen. Why they should happen and what indeed is happening are questions which is not yet in our power to answer. But health goes deeper than any disease. Health goes deeper than any disease. I like that. I believe that. I think that the most difficult thing for people who are ill, especially for people who have serious or life-threatening illnesses, is that not only will their caregivers begin to see and define the ill in terms of their disease, but friends and family will also start to do that as well. They speak of them as of their disease. While it is true that illness affects the whole person, it does not need to dominate the whole person. And the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual strength of people whose physical selves have been decimated by illness is undeniable. If we are to answer the question of how shall we be healed, it is this strength of spirit, intellect, and feeling in our loved ones and in ourselves that we must recognize and to which we must appeal. If we truly believe that health goes deeper than any disease, we can reach deeper and become the agents of healing, even if we have given up a hope for a physical cure. The journey into illness, the will to get well, and the search for healing are some of the most important spiritual, religious journeys that we can take in our lives. These are not necessarily voluntary journeys, ones we neither seek nor boast about, but for most of us, they are an inevitable part of what it means to be human. In his meditations about the journeys taken back by his patients, Oliver Sacks could be describing the larger meaning of healing in the face of illness for all of us. He wrote, "Many of these patients appear now to have come back full circle, and in the back where they were in their most disabled position. But this, in actuality, is by no means the case. They are no longer the people they were. They have acquired a depth, a fullness, a richness, an awareness of themselves and of the nature of things, of a sort which is rare, and only to be achieved through experience and through their suffering. I have tried, insofar as it is possible for another person, to enter in or share their experiences and feelings, and alongside them, to be deepened by these. And if they are no longer the people they were through this experience, through this long travel through their health and their lack of health and their loss of health, if they are no longer the people they were, I am no longer the person I was. We are older, we are more battered, but we are calmer and we are deeper. They have come to rest again in the bosom of their causes. They have come to re-feel the ground of their being, to re-root themselves in the ground of reality, to return to the first ground, the earth ground, the home ground, from which in their sickness they had so long departed. May we learn from those around us how to return to the earth ground, to our ground, to the holy ground that we all share. This is how we too shall be healed. May it be so. Namaste. Amen.